Hello, my name is Jane Polkoyak, and today I'll be talking about using class discussion to engage students. I'm currently certified in Social Studies grades 5 through 12 and have a mixture of experience teaching middle school and high school content. In this case, I will be teaching a 16-year-old student a U.S. history lesson. Let it also be noted that while this example may be used for older students, upon modification and flexibilities can be used by any teacher with any class of any grade level. Within the past decade, the social studies field has drastically changed in approach. Today, emphasis on higher learning concepts that increase in levels of complexity are reliant on connections and content within the field. One way to help accomplish this is through the use of discussion. The discussion method within the classroom has been around for decades and allows for a multifaceted learning of content. Robert McKee, in his article Encouraging Classroom Discussion, writes that research suggests that classroom discussion is an effective method for encouraging student classroom participation and for motivating student learning beyond the classroom. Participation in classroom discussion encourages students to become active collaborators in the learning process, while at the same time providing instructors with a practical method for assessing student learning. Classroom discussion is an effective tool for developing higher level cognitive skills such as critical thinking. However, many times the word discussion is used without proper context. Meredith Gall and Maxwell Gillert, in their article The Discussion Method in Classroom Teaching, distinguishes the difference between classroom discussion and recitation, stating that recitation tends to focus on students recalling and reciting a subject matter content. In contrast, discussion tends to focus on higher cognitive objectives. In this sense, discussion is not a retention and repetition of facts, but a work towards higher order thinking. In order for discussion to work well within a classroom, several factors must be established for success. Bruce Larson, in his article Influences on Social Studies Teachers' Use of Classroom Discussion, found that teachers often must take into account factors such as student diversity, lesson objectives, age and maturity of students, sense of community in the classroom, and interest level of students. These factors are broad in range and can change in value constantly. In my own personal experience, I find that in order to engage discussion, students must be comfortable to open themselves and express themselves in front of their peers. There are a multitude of strategies that can be used to introduce and encourage discussion in the classroom. Since the student is 16, I looked into strategies and modified small sections to better fit my goal, content, and audience. One example strategy I found that worked well was a strategy called Round Robin. This strategy has several benefits that allow for a teacher to get multiple answers for a question that is flexible enough for students to interact among another, whether it be a short answer or an answer that requires a longer explanation. The overall principle of round robin is to constantly answer a question within a group. Round robin can be adapted to allow for teachers to simply have students recite information such as list and cite important people in early American history. The students can give examples such as George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, and so on. However, in other cases, round robin will delve into discussion of deeper topics. An example of such will be to evaluate both a positive and negative factor for dropping the atomic bomb in World War II and synthesize your own course of action to defend it. This example requires students not just to recite facts, but examine and analyze factors, synthesize a stance, and justify their claim. Depending on class size, depth of conversation, and time of class, a simple group of three or a complex group of eight may work best for your students. In any case, if classroom discussion is being used, practice and rules must be established. Danette DeMarco writes in his article, Classroom Traffic, a metaphor for encouraging discussion is a simple yet effective set of rules and principles that model traffic rules. Given how, in this example, The students in the setting are 16. Many of them are receiving their driver's permits, and this slight detail allows for a connection between an outside reference and the classroom. DeMarco's rules in the article are as follows. The acronym TRAFFIC stands for the following. Turn and look at the people you are speaking to. Repeat what has just been said to show that you understand. Answer to the best of your ability. Function. Face to face when you are speaking directly to one person. Include evidence for your answer. And conclude. Following a structure such as DeMarco's for managing discussion etiquette and round-robin composition allow for flexibility in discussion and in a range of topics. Given the age and range of students, I would like to picture a diverse classroom. With that diversity, we would slowly build on discussion with higher order thinking as with much attention to detail on the process of classroom discussion etiquette as possible. I would introduce the class to the idea of classroom discussion and hand out a copy of DeMarco's rules on discussion. In the beginning, I would start with simple discussion to resemble more of a Jeopardy style game, where students would have multiple answers in larger groups and in rotation answer the question. This model follows more of a recitation style, but gets students more attuned toward a structured model and following the rules of discussion. There are certain pitfalls I wish to avoid, one of which is explained by Robert McKee. In his study, Key states that despite the potential discussion holds for student learning, many in academia lament the lack of participation in the classroom. The lack of student participation in the classroom is not a recent problem. It is one that has frustrated instructors for decades. Instructors report that some of the more current methods for encouraging classroom discussion can be exasperated and at times be non-productive. Many times, discussions break down and teachers get defensive or hostile even at the thought of entertaining students. However, I do not see it in that way, and instead I find that we are making them active learners. We are not lecturing them. Instead, we're letting them give their own opinion and input into the class. Another issue that comes with classroom discussion is the over-participation or lack of participation in a discussion. Many times only a few students will take part in the discussion, and those remaining will either be A, overshadowed, or B, simply disinterested with the topic. Classroom discussion requires equal opportunity and a leveling of power or status. Dynamics between teachers and students must be adhered to. We as educators must create a welcoming environment that students can thrive in and be active learners in the classroom. As the class grows, more attuned to the standards of discussion, more advanced questions can be asked. Instead of a simple reciting of information, a more formal question that requires an opinion, an advocacy, or a more detailed explanation may be required. These lessons will take more time, but allow for more exploration and depth of knowledge. In the end, class discussion is less toward the teacher leading the class, but instead the teacher facilitating thought and promoting intrigue.